Welcome to lesson 7.9 on subtraction of positive and negative numbers. This is the part where I said it gets a little bit trickier, especially when you have two negatives because they become a positive, which seems really strange, I know. But as we go through the lesson, hopefully it will make a little bit more sense to you. So let's get started. Let's talk about what our objective is for the lesson. How do we add and subtract negative numbers? And that is our objective. Now, if you look at this little picture to the right, we have a plus, two negatives, and it ends up to be a plus. That's where I talked about the double negatives become a positive. And as we go through the lesson, you're going to see how that works. So in the second one, it's negative and then a negative plus, though. Because there are not two negatives on the second part of that problem, you are not having to worry about changing it. Therefore, it is a negative. Okay? So we are going to get started, so this will make more sense to you. So we're going to do a little mental math to warm up. This one says, negative 7 plus 9. Again, remember, what did we talk about with this? We said you need to make sure you know, do I have more negatives or more positives? And in this one, I have more positives, so my answer is going to be 2. And hopefully you saw that as well. Let's see why my little printer or my little thing doesn't want to work here. But anyways, you should have written 2. All right, so let's go over here to the next one then. We have 11 plus a negative 2. Again, what do I have more of? And I have more positives. So hopefully you have written down that you have a positive 9. I hope that's what you are seeing with this. Positive 9. On to the next question, this purple star here. We have negative 1 plus 5. Again, do I have more negatives or more positives? And that's what you need to keep asking yourself. I have more positives, so 5 plus a negative 1 would give me 4. And I hope that you have written 4 down, okay? Next problem. And actually, we're doing these together. So I did the first 3 with you, and I want you to do the last 3 on your own. So we have negative 8 plus negative 1. We have negative 7 plus 3 plus 9. And again, then our last one is negative 8 plus negative 5. So you're going to write down a 1, 2, and 3. And you're going to do the bottom 3 stars. Negative 8 plus negative 1. Negative 7 plus 3 plus 9. And then negative 8 plus negative 5. Bring those in tomorrow with you. Okay, let's keep moving. In our math message today, the one thing I do want to talk about is I want to talk about the start, the change, the end, because I think that'll make a lot more sense. It says use your plus and minus cards, or your positive and negative cards, to help you. Complete page 237 in your journal. Now, I'm not going to have you use your plus and negative cards. I mean, you're more than welcome to cut them out if you think it will be helpful. But again, I think that using our positive, our yellow and red chips is a little bit easier. So it says use your positive and negative cash card counters to model the following problems. Draw a picture of the plus and minus counters to show you how you found each balance. So you have 3 negative counters, and you're going to add 6 counters. Again, like I told you before, it's easier when you write them out on here like they did. And they have over here, they have the plus, they have 6, and they have 3, and they've crossed them out to see how they've crossed each other out. And I am left with 3 counters. Okay, on the next one it says you have a balance of, you have 5 positive counters and 5 negative counters. Well, those cancel each other out, leaving us with 0 counters. And I apologize because I don't know why my little airliner does not want to work here tonight. So I'm going to have to try to figure out what is going on with it. And then it says you have 5 positive counters and 7 negatives. I have more negatives than positives. Again, feel free to write down or mark these. So like if I did this and I write my positive, and I think that, that makes it easier, and I apologize because these are not really good, but I'm going to put my 5 here, and then if you put your 7 underneath, that sometimes seems to work better when you line them up. So I have 1 here, and I have 1 here, and I have one here, one there, and then two more extras that don't match up. So if I cancel them, I just draw a line through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I am left with 2, and it is negative. So your balance would be negative 2. Oops, and I apologize. That doesn't look very good. All right, so let's go back up here. And it says show a balance of 7, negative 7, using 15 of your positive and negative counters. So what I would like you to do is draw plus and minus counters to show negative 7. And you need to use 15 counters. So how will you do that? Okay. And then on numbers 4 and 5, it says you have 7 negative counters. Take away 4 negative counters. What do I have now? Okay. You have 7 positive counters. Take away 4 negative counters. What am I left with? So on this page, you're doing 3, 4, and 5. So you're adding 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Let's keep going. All right, so here it says developing a rule for subtracting positive and negative numbers. Looking at the answers, can we find any patterns that help us develop a rule? Well, on this one, as I'm looking at number 8, number 1, I look here, and as I look at it, I see that I have 8 minus a negative 4, but it gives me a positive. Again, this is where I talked about where I have those double positives or double negatives, and then they become positives. So 2 negatives like this in a row become positives, and that's how I draw my little line. So that's why it's 12. 8 plus 4 is 12. Negative 7 minus 3 equals negative 10. This one, I do not have a double negative in the middle. Yes, this is a negative, but they're not right next to each other, and that's the trick. I have a negative 7 plus a negative 3. Again, negative 10. Okay? Now, when I have a negative, I change that negative to a plus, and then I change this symbol to a minus, because I always want it to be plus. Okay? And that seems odd too, I know that, but it's really not. It's just one of the rules, again, that we have to go with. Okay? So here, let's keep scrolling. Negative 7 plus negative 3. Notice they all end up to be plus. Okay? Now, plus can still give you a negative answer, but here again, in number 5, I have a plus or a negative, so I'm going to make that a positive and this a positive. So they be hooked together, kind of like 2 positives. So then I have 5 plus 6 equals 11. This one again, 5 plus 6. Now here, again, I have my double negative. Negative and negative. So I have negative 6 plus 2 now. I still have more negatives, so my answer becomes negative 4. I think the trickiest ones are when you're trying to switch the 2 negatives in the center, and then this one. When I have a minus in the middle, I need to change it. When I change it to a plus, I change the next number to its opposite sign. Again, it's just going to take practice and lots of it. Okay, let's pull this over so you can kind of see some examples. Again, this was looking familiar. Now, if you notice in this first one, like you saw on the page, if I do plus and plus, okay, so that makes it 2 positives. This one, I change it to a plus, and this now becomes a negative, okay? And our answer is negative, because a negative plus a negative is a negative. Then on the next one, I have a plus, I have plus minus plus is plus, okay? On the next one, I am going to change it to a positive again, because I have a double negative. So here, I want to do this, okay? And now I have a negative plus a positive equals a positive. I have more because they're trying to show you you have a bigger blue, and so that's showing you have more positives. Okay, on the bottom one, I have a negative. So here's what you would do. You're going to change this right here. I'm going to put this as a plus, and I'm going to change this one to a negative now. Okay, so I have a plus, a positive plus a big negative gives me a negative. So it's a bigger negative. So these I know can be confusing, so just hang in there. Now, I have a big negative. I'm going to change my symbol like I need to because I have double. So there, I have a more negatives plus a smaller negative still gives me a negative. Okay, so again, confusing, I know. The more we do it, the more it will make sense, I hope. All right, let's wrap up then. This is in your journal, and yes, it would be helpful if you have your journal. So on number 1, they rewrote the problem for us. They changed the sign. Again, when I have a subtraction problem, I want to make sure I change it to an addition problem. In order to do that, I put plus, but then 45 needs to become negative because I'm changing the symbol. Okay? Again, on this one, I change this to a plus, and I change that to negative. So on this one, I would write a negative 100 plus a negative 45. Now this one would give me a negative 145 because I'm just combining negatives. But what would my top answer be? Because I have more positive than negatives. Right, I'll do one more with you to see if you get it, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, in the middle here on number 3, I have 2 negatives. Again, can't have 2 negatives, going to make them positives. So that is now 160 plus 80. So on my line, I would write 160 plus 80 equals, and I hope you say 240 because I have 2 negatives there. Okay? Good. Now on the top one, you're finding the difference here, and hopefully you put 55 because 55 plus a negative 45. Okay, so 100 plus negative 45 gives me 55. All right, so the last 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, I'm going to have you try on your own. Don't worry about number 9. We're going to do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just remember, every symbol needs to be changed to a plus. And this, if I change it, this needs to become negative. Okay? When I have the double negative, we make it positive. And it is confusing. Try the very best you can. All right, we'll go over these again in class. Let's go back and review and see if we did do our objective. Subtraction of negative and positive numbers. How do we add and subtract negative numbers? Hopefully you have a little better handle on how to do this, and we will review again in class, and we'll do some more practice. Have a great evening.